I remember the day they took my keys as clearly as the day I first bought this land. It was raining that morning thin, silver rain that tapped against the window of my old farmhouse like it was trying to warn me. I sat at the kitchen table with my cup of tea, steam curling like ghosts between my fingers, when my daughter Clara walked in with that look on her face, the one she wore whenever she'd already decided something for me. "Mom," she said softly. Too softly. "We need to talk." I knew what that tone meant. It always meant something was being taken away. It started small, you see. First, they took my car, said I was too old to drive, though I'd driven that pickup for 40 years without a scratch. Then they insisted on a nurse visiting every week, just to check up. Before long, I couldn't even walk to the mailbox without someone hovering behind me, waiting to catch me like I was made of glass. But I wasn't made of glass. I was made of soil and storm, and the earth beneath this house was mine. When my husband, Richard, and I bought this land back in 1973, it was nothing but acres of overgrown fields and a run-down barn. Everyone said we were crazy. But we worked this place with our own hands, built the farmhouse plank by plank, planted every tree, marked every inch of boundary ourselves. The land was part of us. I used to say the house breathed with me. So when Clara told me they were moving me somewhere safer, my heart broke like something fragile dropped from a great height. "Where safer?" I asked, though I already feared the answer. She hesitated. "It's called Maple Rest. It's a wonderful nursing home, Mom. You'll have your own room, a nice garden view, staff to help you with everything. You'll be comfortable there." Comfortable. That word stung. Comfortable sounded like surrender. "I don't want to go," I said firmly. "This is my home. I built this place. I'll die here if I have to." Clara's eyes watered, but I noticed how she didn't argue, just turned away, her lips trembling as if holding back guilt. The next week, I woke up to the sound of strangers in my house, moving boxes, whispering, walking through rooms that had once held only laughter and love. My grandson, Daniel, was helping. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's just for a while, Grandma," he muttered, packing up my photo albums. I felt powerless, surrounded by my own memories being sealed into cardboard coffins. When I cried, they told me not to make it harder than it had to be. They drove me to Maple Rest that afternoon. I remember looking back through the car window, watching my house fade into the trees. Something inside me whispered, "They're hiding something from you." The nursing home was beautiful, I'll admit. A big, white building with red brick trimming, neat gardens, and a wide porch that looked out over the hills. But beauty can be cruel when you don't choose it yourself. They settled me into room 14, cozy, they called it. A bed, a dresser, a window that faced the courtyard. I could see the garden, where residents sat in wheelchairs under umbrellas, some staring at nothing. I promised myself I wouldn't end up like that. The days blurred after that. Nurses came and went with polite smiles, like they'd practiced them in a mirror. They called me Mrs. Green, though I told them to call me Evelyn. Meals came at fixed times, pills at others, and everything was scheduled to the minute. It was like living on someone else's clock. Clara visited once a week. She brought flowers, always lilies, Richard's favorite. She'd sit on the edge of my bed, holding my hand, her eyes darting around like she was afraid of something. One day, I asked her directly, "Clara, who's living in my house now?" Her fingers froze around mine. "It's complicated, Mom. Try me." She sighed. "The nursing home made an offer. The land is being developed. There's an expansion plan. It's good money, Mom. You'll be taken care of for life." The room spun. "You sold my land?" I whispered. "No, Mom, not exactly. It's under agreement. You still have shares in it, sort of." I turned away. I didn't trust her words. Sort of never means anything good. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared out the window, watching the lights from the lower wing flicker. A cold thought crossed my mind. What if this place isn't just on my land? What if it's built right on it? The next morning, I asked one of the staff, a kind young woman named Millie, where exactly the nursing home stood. She showed me a map pinned on the wall by the reception. My breath caught in my throat. The coordinates were familiar, too familiar. The home stood right where my old barn used to be. I owned that barn, which meant I owned this ground. I felt a rush of strange satisfaction mixed with fury. They'd forced me into a place built on my own soil. My own daughter had done this to me. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing odd things. Late at night, I'd hear footsteps outside my door, whispering voices, the sound of papers sliding under doors. One evening, as I was walking back from dinner, I saw Clara speaking with the administrator, Mr. Lawson, near the front office. They stopped talking the moment they saw me. She looked pale, he looked nervous. I smiled politely and kept walking, but my heart pounded. Something was happening behind closed doors, something involving me. A few days later, I received an envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a single sheet of paper, no signature, no note, just a photograph. It was an aerial shot of the property. And right there, in faded letters, were the words still visible on the old land deed, "Property of Evelyn Green." My fingers trembled as I traced those words. That night I sat by the window and whispered to myself, "They think I'm old, weak, and blind, but this land still remembers my name." I knew then I wouldn't let them win. And somewhere deep down, I felt Richard's presence beside me, as if his ghost was saying, "It's time to fight for what's yours, Evelyn." The morning after I found that photograph, I felt a new kind of strength in my bones. Not the kind that comes from youth, but the kind that grows from anger, a deep, steady fire that keeps you warm even when the world tries to freeze you out. I hid the photograph inside my Bible, between the pages of Psalms, and pretended nothing had changed. But everything had. Over breakfast, I smiled at the nurses like always, but my mind was racing. Every brick in that building, every inch of polished hallway, it was all sitting on my soil. I wasn't a guest here. I was the landlord, the owner of every inch they walked on, and I was going to prove it. That afternoon, I asked Millie, the sweet nurse, who always brought me extra sugar packets, for a favor. "Do you think you could print something for me, dear? It's just a form I need from the county office." She smiled, unsuspecting. "Of course, Mrs. Green. Just email it to the front desk printer. or write down what you need. I wrote down the exact words: property records for Green Estate, Maplewood County, lot hash 45A. It took her 2 days to bring it to me. She slipped the folded papers under my teacup during lunch, whispering, "Here, before Mr. Lawson sees. You didn't tell me this was about the nursing home." I waited until nightfall to read it. The room was silent except for the hum of the hallway lights. When I unfolded the papers, my hands shook. There it was, in black ink, plain as day. Owner of record, Evelyn M. Green. The land lease had never been transferred. Clara and the nursing home had filed a development claim, but they had no legal right to it. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at my name. It felt like hearing my own heartbeat again after thinking it had stopped. But along with relief came another feeling: fear. Because if Clara had gone this far to hide it, she wouldn't stop easily. The next day, I confronted her. She came in, wearing her usual forced smile, carrying a basket of apples. "Mom, I brought your favorite Honeycrisps." "I didn't take them. You told me the land was under agreement." "You lied." Her smile faltered. "Mom, please." "I saw the documents," I interrupted, my voice trembling but strong. "My name's still on that deed. The nursing home sits on my land." She went pale. For a moment, she looked like a frightened child again, the same look she wore when she'd broken the neighbor's window and tried to hide it. But then her face hardened. "You don't understand how complicated things are now, Mom. The facility's been built. There's money involved, contracts, staff, money," I said quietly. "That's what this is about, isn't it? You didn't move me here to help me. You moved me here to control me." Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she whispered, "I did it for your future. For everyone's future." "You're too old to handle legal stuff now." My voice broke. "You took my home, Clara. You took my dignity. And for what? A check?" She dropped her gaze. "You'll thank me someday," she said softly before leaving the room. But I knew she was lying to me and to herself. From that moment, I started documenting everything. I wrote down every conversation, every visit, every odd thing that happened. The way Mr. Lawson avoided eye contact whenever I asked about ownership. The new construction at the back wing, heavy trucks rolling in at dawn, workers fencing off areas that used to be open garden. One evening, I overheard 2 staff members whispering near the hallway. "They're fast-tracking the south expansion," one said. "Lawson wants it done before year-end. The old woman can't find out." My chest tightened. They were building more on my land without my consent. The next day, I requested to speak with Mr. Lawson directly. He met me in his office, his usual charm pasted across his face. "Mrs. Green," he said cheerfully, "how can I help you today?" I leaned forward. "By telling me why your nursing home is standing on property I own." His smile stiffened. "I'm afraid that's a misunderstanding. The facility's ownership and land lease were transferred as part of a legal arrangement with your family." "Show me the papers," I demanded. He hesitated. "Those records are confidential. Not if they have my name on them." We stared at each other, silence thick between us. Finally, he sighed and said, "Mrs. Green, I'll have someone review the files. He never did. That night, my window rattled in the wind, and I couldn't shake the feeling someone had been in my room. The drawer where I kept the property documents was slightly open. I checked inside. The papers were gone. Panic surged through me. They knew I knew. For days after that, I felt watched. Nurses lingered too long at my door. My phone calls to the county office were mysteriously disconnected. Even Millie seemed distant, as if she'd been warned not to talk to me. Then one night, while everyone slept, I crept down the hall in my slippers. The security lights flickered faintly as I made my way toward the administrative wing. I'd memorized the path. I knew where they kept the files behind the frosted glass door labeled Records and Finance. It was locked, but years of being a farmer's wife taught me a few tricks. I used the edge of my hairpin to lift the latch. The door clicked open softly. Inside, rows of filing cabinets gleamed under the pale light. I searched frantically until I found the folder marked Maple Rest Property Deed. My fingers traced over the stamp. It read, Pending transfer, awaiting owner's signature. Owner's signature. Mine? They hadn't gotten it because I never gave it. They forged everything else but not that final approval. Without it, the land was still mine. I snapped photos of every page with my old flip phone, then carefully returned the folder. As I turned to leave, I froze. Footsteps echoed down the hall. I ducked behind the file cabinet, heart hammering. Mr. Lawson entered, talking on his phone. Yes, she's starting to ask too many questions. No, Clara's handling it. She won't be a problem much longer. I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood. After he left, I slipped back to my room, my pulse racing. I knew then that whatever they were planning, it wasn't just about money anymore. It was about silencing me. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, clutching my phone, whispering to Richard's photograph. They don't know who they're dealing with. Not yet. By the next morning, I had a plan. I might have been trapped behind polished walls and locked doors, but I'd lived long enough to know that power doesn't always come from freedom, it comes from knowledge. And now, I had more than they thought I did. The sunrise slipped through the blinds, painting gold stripes across my blanket. I stared at them and whispered, You built this prison on my land. Let's see how long you can keep me quiet in it. At breakfast I acted calm, even cheerful. I chatted with the other residents, laughed at small jokes, and let everyone think I was just another harmless old woman fading into her routine. But inside, my thoughts were razor sharp. Every smile was a disguise. Every thank you was a step closer to revenge. I had one ally left, Millie. She'd been avoiding me ever since the missing papers incident, but I caught her alone in the laundry room that afternoon. Millie, I whispered, glancing over my shoulder, I need your help again. Her eyes widened. Mrs. Green, I can't. Mr. Lawson warned everyone. He said you've been confused lately. They might fire me. Do I sound confused to you? I asked, my voice low but steady. I own the land this place stands on. They built over my barn, my fields, my memories. And now they're pretending it's theirs. They're lying, Millie. I just need someone with courage to help me prove it. She hesitated, wringing her hands. Then she whispered, "What do you need me to do?" Hope flickered in me like a candle. "I need you to send those photos I took from my phone to a lawyer." Millie frowned. "Do you even have one?" "I used to. My husband's old friend, Mr. Hanley. He handled our will. He's still in town." I pointed toward the drawer beside my bed. "His card is in there. If you could send him those pictures, he'll know what to do." Millie nodded slowly. "Okay, but if they trace it back to me, they won't. Just say it was an accident. Please, dear, you'll be helping me keep what's mine." That night, she took my phone. I barely slept, praying she'd find a way to send those photos before anyone noticed. 2 days passed. Nothing. Then, on the 3rd morning, I was called to Mr. Lawson's office. He was waiting with that same slick smile. "Mrs. Green," he began, "I wanted to check on how you're settling in. I've noticed some unusual activity." My stomach tightened. He held up my phone. "You've been sending messages outside the facility, unauthorized communication." I clenched my jaw. "You went through my things?" He shrugged. "We monitor all resident devices for safety." "Safety," I spat. "You mean control." His smile never wavered. "You're mistaken. We just want what's best for you." "Then stop stealing from me." That made him pause, just long enough for me to see the flicker of guilt. "Mrs. Green," he said finally, "why don't you rest for a while? We'll have a counselor speak to you tomorrow." That was the day they moved me to another wing, the memory care section. Locked doors, no phones, no visitors without approval. Clara visited the next afternoon. She looked shaken, eyes red from crying or pretending to cry. "Mom," she said softly, "please stop this. You're only making things harder for yourself." I laughed bitterly. "Harder for me? Or harder for you and your new business partners?" She froze. I leaned closer, my voice trembling with fury. "You put me in here to keep me quiet, but even if you lock every door in this building, you can't bury the truth. My name is still on that deed." Her lips quivered. "You're not well," she said quietly. "You need rest." "You sound just like him," I whispered. "Just like Lawson. Always pretending you care while tightening the leash." She turned to leave, but before she did, I said something that made her stop in her tracks. "I sent the proof to someone who isn't afraid of you." Her eyes widened for a second before she composed herself and walked out without another word. That night, Millie sneaked into my room again, her face pale. "He knows, Mrs. Green. Lawson found out about the photos. They checked my computer, but I managed to send them before they deleted everything." "Did you hear back from Mr. Hanley?" I asked. She nodded. He replied, "Said he's looking into the land registration now. He asked if you're safe." I smiled through my tears. "Not yet, but I will be." Over the next week, things got worse. They cut off my calls, limited my visits, and even changed my medication. I could feel the pills making me drowsy, fogging my mind. I pretended to swallow them, then hid them under my tongue until the nurse left. Every day felt like a game of survival. But each time I looked out the window and saw the workers expanding the building, I reminded myself, every hammer, every brick, they're all trespassing on my life. Then, one afternoon, I saw a familiar face in the garden, Mr. Hanley. My heart leapt. He wore his old tweed hat, walking calmly with a folder under his arm. I waved desperately, but the staff stopped me. "You can't go outside right now, Mrs. Green. He's here for me," I cried. "That's my lawyer." The nurse smiled gently. "There's no record of any visitor." They led me back to my room. But as I turned, I caught Mr. Hanley's eyes through the glass. He gave a subtle nod. I knew then he'd found something. That night, Millie slipped me a note she'd found tucked under her workstation. It said only one thing: "You are still the legal owner. Don't sign anything." Tears filled my eyes as I read it again and again. I pressed the note to my chest, whispering, "Richard, you see? They can't take it from me. Not yet." But the victory was short-lived. The next morning, I was summoned again, this time to a meeting with both Clara and Lawson. When I entered the office, they were seated side by side, like a judge and jury waiting for a confession. "Mom," Clara began, "we've reviewed everything. The documents are outdated. The land ownership was transferred as part of your care arrangement." I glared at her. "Transferred? Without my consent? That's fraud." Lawson cleared his throat. "Mrs. Green, we have your signature on file." He slid a paper toward me. My heart dropped. It looked like my signature, my full name in careful cursive, but I'd never signed that document. I studied it closely. Then I noticed it, the date. The supposed signature was from 6 months earlier, on a day I'd been hospitalized after my hip surgery. I remembered clearly because I'd been unconscious during the operation. "That's not me," I said coldly. "That's a forgery." Lawson's smile faltered. Clara turned pale. "Do you really think an old woman can't remember her own surgery date?" I said, my voice shaking but loud. "You built your lie on top of my land, and now you've buried yourself in it." Neither of them spoke. I stood, steadying myself on the chair. This isn't over, not by a long shot. And as I walked out of that room, for the first time since they took my keys, I felt free. The days that followed were a blur of tension, whispers, and shadows moving just out of sight. I could feel it in the air like a storm building behind the walls. Everyone was pretending that nothing had changed, but I knew better. Something had cracked, and now they were scrambling to seal it before the truth spilled out. Clara didn't visit for a week. Not a call, not even a message. Mr. Lawson avoided me completely. The nurses were polite but distant, their eyes sliding away from mine like they were afraid of catching guilt. Only Millie still treated me like a person. She brought me my meals, whispered encouragements, and made sure my letters reached Mr. Hanley, my lawyer. But even she was starting to look frightened. One evening she came in pale-faced, closing the door behind her. "Mrs. Green," she said in a low voice, "they're going to move you." "Move me?" I frowned. "Where?" "To another facility," she whispered. "Out of state. They said you're showing signs of dementia, that it's for your own safety. But—" she swallowed hard. "I saw the paperwork, and your daughter's name is on it." She approved the transfer herself. My blood ran cold. I gripped the edge of the blanket. "They're trying to make me disappear." Millie nodded slightly, her eyes glistening. You need to do something fast, Mr. Hanley's letter came today. She handed me an envelope. My fingers trembled as I opened it, the paper soft from being handled too much. His handwriting was sharp and urgent. Evelyn, do not leave the facility. Do not sign or agree to anything. I've found proof that the signature on the transfer deed was forged using documents obtained during your hospital stay. Someone accessed your medical files illegally. I have requested a formal injunction to freeze all property actions under your name. Stay where you are. Trust no one but Millie. Hanley, I pressed the letter to my chest, my heart racing. So I hadn't imagined it. They really were trying to erase me. That night, I stayed awake, staring out the window. The courtyard lights shimmered faintly, casting ghostly shadows across the floor. Somewhere down the hall, a resident coughed. The air felt thick, heavy with secrets. I kept hearing Richard's voice in my mind. You hold the land, Evie? Never let it go. It's more than soil, it's legacy. I whispered back. I won't, Richard. Not now. Not ever. The next morning, I pretended to play along. I smiled at the nurses, nodded when they mentioned my upcoming relocation, and even thanked Mr. Lawson when he came by my room to check on me. He wore that smug, rehearsed grin. You'll love the new place, Mrs. Green. It's quieter, more private. You'll have more peace there. Peace? I said softly. Is that what you call burying someone alive? His smile faltered. You're tired, Mrs. Green. I understand. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. Do you? Because I understand too. I know about the forgery. I know what you and my daughter did. His eyes flickered with panic for a brief second before he regained composure. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth, I said, and the truth has a way of surfacing. You built your fortune on my land, Mr. Lawson, but remember the foundation of this place belongs to me, and I'm done being quiet. He left without another word. But I saw fear in his eyes. Later that afternoon, Millie brought me more news. Mr. Hanley filed the injunction, she whispered, glancing around. It's official now. They can't transfer ownership or move you without a court review. Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived. That night, chaos erupted. Around midnight, alarms blared. Smoke filled the hallway, thick and acrid. I grabbed my cane and stumbled toward the door, coughing. Flames licked the far end of the corridor, glowing orange in the dark. The staff rushed past, shouting orders, guiding residents out. Millie found me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. This way, Mrs. Green, hurry. We made it outside into the freezing night air. Sirens wailed in the distance. The nursing home looked like a ghost rising in smoke, my land burning, my legacy cracking under the heat. I stood there, trembling, staring at the flames consuming the place that had trapped me. And then I noticed something. The fire wasn't spreading naturally. It was too precise, too contained. It burned only near the record's wing. Millie, I whispered, that's where they keep the files. Her eyes widened. Oh my God, someone wanted those documents gone. The evidence, the forged papers, all of it. By morning, the fire was out. Half the building was gone, but most residents were safe. The official report claimed it was an electrical malfunction. I didn't believe that for a second. When Clara finally appeared, she looked distraught, or maybe just pretending again. Her makeup was smeared, her hands shaking as she hugged me. "Mom, thank God you're all right. I was so scared." I didn't hug her back. "Were you?" I asked quietly. "Or did the fire burn more than you expected?" She pulled back, eyes flashing. "What are you implying?" "I'm implying you'll do anything to keep your secret safe, even destroy evidence." Her voice rose. "You're out of control. You don't know what you're saying." "Oh, I know exactly what I'm saying," I replied. "And so will the police once Mr. Hanley finishes his report." Her expression twisted, a mix of anger and fear. "You're ruining everything," she hissed under her breath. "You don't understand this was for you. For your future." "My future?" I laughed bitterly. "You tried to erase my past to fund your future." She stormed off, and I watched her go, a strange calm settling over me. 2 days later, I was temporarily moved to another nearby facility while repairs began, but this time I wasn't helpless. Hanley's assistant came to see me in person. She was young, sharp-eyed, and carried a stack of files. "Mrs. Green," she said, "we have what we need. The land is legally yours, and the forgery traces back to your daughter's bank account and the administrator's office. We'll be filing charges soon." I exhaled shakily, tears slipping down my cheeks. "They thought I'd die quietly," I said, "but they built their empire on the wrong grave." The assistant smiled faintly. "You're stronger than they think." That night, as I lay in the quiet of my new room, I looked out at the moonlight spilling across the lawn. The earth still felt familiar beneath me, mine. It always had been. But deep down, I knew the battle wasn't over yet, because people who build lies don't stop until they've buried the truth completely. And I had one last card to play something they could never expect. The days that followed the fire felt strangely quiet, almost too quiet, like the calm after a storm that everyone knows isn't really over. I could feel it in my bones that something darker was still lurking beneath the surface. Clara hadn't come back to see me. Not once. And though the staff at this temporary facility were kind enough, there was an air of tension in their politeness, as if they'd been warned to keep an eye on me. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had proof. I had truth. And I had time. Mr. Hanley called me on the facility phone one morning. His voice was steady, calm, reassuring. "Evelyn," he said, "I've spoken to the district attorney. Lawson and your daughter are being investigated for fraud and elder coercion. But there's something else you should know." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Something else?" He hesitated. "The documents we recovered, they show that Lawson wasn't the one who initiated the transfer. He was only the middleman." "Then who did?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Someone close to you. Someone who's been managing your estate for years." My stomach turned cold. "You mean Clara's husband?" "Yes," he said quietly. "Your son-in-law, Mark. It appears he was the one who convinced Clara to move you into Maple Rest. He drew up the paperwork, contacted Lawson, and even arranged the hospital access for your medical files. Clara may have gone along with it, But Mark orchestrated everything. I couldn't speak. My mind replayed every memory of that man, his forced politeness, his condescending smile, the way he always called me Mom but never looked me in the eyes. I should have known, I whispered. He was always asking about the land, always telling Clara to modernize, to put the property to better use. He planned this. Yes, Hanley said. He used your trust and your daughter to secure control of the nursing home's construction. But the good news is, we've frozen their accounts and filed for an emergency injunction. They can't touch your property now. When I hung up, my hands were trembling, not from fear but from rage, a quiet, burning rage that only years of betrayal could create. That evening, I sat by the window, watching the sunset bleed across the sky. The light fell on my wrinkled hands, and I thought of Richard again. He would have hated Mark. He'd always said, "Men who smile too wide have something to hide." He was right. 2 days later, I got a surprise visit. Clara walked into my room, looking thinner, paler, like someone whose lies had started to eat her alive. She didn't have flowers this time. She just stood there, her hands twisting in front of her. "Mom," she whispered, "I didn't know about Mark's plan. I swear I didn't." I stared at her. "You expect me to believe that? You signed those papers, Clara." Her eyes filled with tears. "He told me you'd already agreed. He showed me the papers, your signature, your approval letter from the hospital. He said it was all finalized. And you didn't think to ask me?" I asked bitterly. "You just handed over everything your father and I built because a man told you to?" She sank into the chair beside me, sobbing quietly. "I was scared. Mark said we'd lose everything if we didn't act fast. He said you were too sick to handle things anymore." For a moment, I just watched her cry. My heart wanted to forgive her. She was still my daughter, but my soul refused. The wound was too deep. "Where is he now?" I asked finally. "Gone," she whispered. "The police came this morning. They took him for questioning. Mr. Hanley called me too. He told me what he found. I didn't know, Mom. I didn't know." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I saw more than guilt. I saw shame, fear, and the crushing realization of how deeply she'd been used. "I believe you didn't know everything," I said softly. "But you helped him, even if you didn't mean to. You left me in that place, Clara. You let them take my keys, my freedom, my voice." She buried her face in her hands. "I know. I'll never forgive myself." There was silence between us, the kind that feels heavy, full of everything left unsaid. Then I took a deep breath. "Clara, listen to me. You're my daughter. You made a terrible mistake. But if you want to make it right, you'll help me finish this." She looked up, eyes wet. "Finish it?" "Yes," I said, my voice hardening. "We're going to take back everything, not just the land, our name, our story, our legacy. And we're going to make sure no one ever builds another lie on this soil again." She nodded slowly. "I'll do whatever you ask." That night, with Millie's help, we began gathering every piece of evidence, emails, bank records, construction permits, medical files. Hanley had already filed for an emergency hearing, but I wanted more than just legal victory. I wanted justice. A week later, the hearing began. I wasn't allowed to attend in person due to my health, but Hanley insisted on video testimony. When the camera came on, and I saw Lawson and Mark sitting there, my anger burned like fire. "Mrs. Green," the judge said gently, "can you confirm that the land in question belongs to you?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said clearly. "I purchased it with my husband in 1973. We built our home on it. It was never sold, never transferred. The nursing home was constructed without my consent." Hanley presented the forged documents. "Note the signature date, Your Honor, Mrs. Green was hospitalized and sedated during that time. We also have evidence showing that Mr. Mark Peterson accessed her medical files through a false authorization form." The judge's expression hardened. Mark tried to speak, but the judge silenced him. "Mr. Peterson, these are serious charges." When the session ended, I felt lighter. I'd carried that burden for months, fear, doubt, betrayal, and now the truth had finally spoken louder than their lies. Later that evening, Hanley called again. His voice held something I hadn't heard in months' triumph. "Evelyn," he said, "the court has ruled in your favor. The land is officially reinstated under your name. Lawson has been suspended pending investigation, and your son-in-law will face criminal charges. You've won." I closed my eyes, tears spilling freely. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe. But even as I wept, part of me knew this wasn't the end. Because the land they stole wasn't just property, it was the ground where my life was built, where my husband's laughter still echoed, where my daughter's first steps once left tiny prints in the dirt. They thought they could bury me under their lies, but all they did was remind me how deep my roots truly run, and I wasn't done yet, because there was still one thing left to reveal something no one knew, not even Clara, a secret buried deeper than the deed itself. The morning after the verdict, I woke before sunrise. The air outside my window was heavy with mist, the kind that makes the world look like it's holding its breath. I sat there quietly, staring at the pale outline of the hills beyond the glass, and thought about everything that had happened, the lies, the fire, the court hearings, the betrayal that had nearly broken me, and yet, somehow, I was still here. Millie came in with breakfast, smiling softly. "You did it, Mrs. Green. You won." I smiled back. "No, dear. I survived. There's a difference." She placed the tray by my bed and hesitated. "Will you ever go back to your land?" I looked toward the fog outside. "I have to," I said. "There's something I need to do before I leave this world behind." Later that week, Hanley arranged for me to visit the property. The nursing home was still standing, though half of it was cordoned off with yellow tape, and the smell of smoke still lingered in the air. Clara met me at the gate, wearing a plain coat and no makeup, her face pale but softer somehow, humbled. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" she asked. I nodded. "It's my land. It'll always be my land. I'm not afraid of it." We walked slowly together down the gravel path. My cane clicked against the stones, echoing softly in the cool morning air. The garden was still green, though ash had settled in the soil. For a long time we didn't speak. Then Clara whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom, for everything." I stopped and turned to her. You can't undo what's been done, Clara, but you can learn from it. The world will take everything from you if you let greed lead the way." She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I just wanted to build something that would last." "You did," I said quietly, "but not the way you thought." We reached the back of the property, the spot where the old barn used to stand before they tore it down. The soil looked darker there, almost sacred, and I felt a pull deep in my chest. I told Clara to wait while I walked closer, my cane sinking slightly into the soft ground. That's when I saw it, a small patch of earth where the fire hadn't touched. The same corner where Richard and I had once buried a wooden chest decades ago, when we first bought the land. I had almost forgotten about it. "Clara," I said, my voice trembling, "help me dig here." She frowned, confused but obedient. Together we knelt and brushed away the dirt until the corner of something wooden appeared. My heart raced as we pulled the old chest free and opened it. Inside were papers old, brittle, but still legible. Land deeds, photographs, a letter in Richard's handwriting. My hands shook as I unfolded the letter. The ink had faded, but I could still read every word. "Evie, if you're reading this, it means time has caught up with us. I wanted you to have this proof of what's ours. You always said the land was more than just a home, and you were right. This land has something sacred in it. When we bought it, the lawyer made a mistake. He registered it under both our names, but also under a trust I created for you and our descendants. If anyone ever tries to take it, remember, it doesn't just belong to us. It belongs to every green that comes after." I pressed the letter to my chest, tears blurring the words. Clara leaned closer, whispering, "A trust? You mean—" "Yes," I said softly. "This land isn't just mine, or yours. It belongs to our family, the ones before us, and the ones still to come." She covered her mouth, sobbing quietly. "He protected it even from us." I nodded. "Your father knew people's hearts can change, even family. He built a wall of love around this land stronger than paper, stronger than greed." We sat there for a long time, surrounded by the quiet hum of the earth. The morning sun began to rise, breaking through the mist, turning the burnt edges of the building into gold. It was as if the land itself was forgiving us, cleansing the past, reminding us that no matter what was taken, roots always find a way to hold on. When I finally stood, I felt light, almost free of time. "Clara," I said, "I want you to rebuild this place, but not as a nursing home, not as a business." She looked at me, eyes swollen from tears. "Then what should it be?" I smiled faintly. "A refuge, a home for people who have nowhere else to go, a place that gives, not takes. That's what your father and I wanted this land to mean." She nodded slowly. "I'll do it. I promise." I reached out and took her hand for the first time in years. It felt like holding my daughter again. "Then maybe," I whispered, "we can start over." The months that followed were quiet. Investigations continued, lawyers came and went, and slowly Maple Rest was transformed. The burnt wing was torn down, replaced by a wide garden filled with benches, flowers, and fruit trees. The new sign at the gate didn't read Maple Rest Nursing Home anymore. It read, "The Green Haven founded in memory of Evelyn and Richard Green. I moved back into a small cottage on the property, overlooking the same hills I'd once thought I'd lost forever. Millie became the head caretaker of the new facility. Clara visited every week, and sometimes she brought Daniel, her son, who would run barefoot through the same fields his grandfather once walked. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, Clara and I sat on the porch together. The light painted everything golden. "Mom," she said softly, "you were right. This land does breathe. You can feel it." I smiled. "It's the past whispering to us. It always does if you listen closely enough." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in years, I felt peace, the kind that comes only after losing everything and finding it again in a different form. That night, before going to bed, I walked out to the garden one last time. The stars shimmered above, and I could almost hear Richard's voice in the wind. "You did it, Evie," it said. "No," I whispered back. "We did." I looked toward the horizon, where the moonlight touched the land, my land, and smiled, because even though they had tried to take it, burn it, erase it, it had always belonged to me. And in the quiet of that night, I realized something simple and beautiful. They could take my home. They could take my freedom. But they could never take my roots, because the land remembers. And so do I.